happy to have Dr. Ananda here. Yes, we're really lucky because it was like, he came last year and before that there was a 5-year gap. And now we're really lucky because he's come 2 years in a row. So, I don't know if everyone knows all about Dr. Ananda's background, but I'll just give you a bit more of an idea. So obviously he's our teacher, and you will get to look at his picture whenever you come in on the wall there.
Yeah, that's an old one.
Updated version.
I look much better.
So,
less wise. The beard makes it look a bit more mature.
So yeah, Dr. Ananda is actually a medical doctor as well. He was actually the top doctor in his university that year. He has 9 sets of letters after his name. There's just so many here, I mean. So he knows a lot of stuff. He's also the director of SITA, so that's the Centre of Yoga Therapy, Education and Research, at the Sri Balayogi Vidyapeeth University in India, Medical University. Chairman at the International Centre of Yoga Education and Research at Ananda Ashram, where he trained. He's the son and successor of Swami Ananda, who was our root guru for us, and son of Amaji, who's very special, dear to my heart, and a great teacher for me. He's the author of 23 books, 200 papers. It's probably gone up, so this is last year's. 19 DVDs, 1,500 citations, lots of research work. Also travelled around touring, teaching yoga, places America, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Europe, 16 plus countries. Honorary advisor to the International Association of Yoga Therapists, and also on the National Board for Promotion and Development of Yoga and Naturopathy. And I mean, the list goes on really. It's just like, we're so lucky to have such a knowledgeable, esteemed person in our presence. And yeah, we're just really grateful to have him, and I hope you all get a lot out of today as well. So thank you for making it and coming.
Thank you very much, Deepika, for those kind words. We as a human being know ourselves until we come out of our mother's womb, and then starts this journey where we keep on adding on what we think are identification tags, because we want to know who we are. We are fine as long as we are in the mother's womb. But then the moment that separation occurs and we come out and the umbilical cord gets cut, we take that first breath of life and suddenly we are like, who am I? And we say, okay, I better identify with my name, my family, my religion, my nationality, grow up a bit, identify with our school, then our college, our university, then our job, then our family, and then it keeps on going in cycles and cycles and cycles. And we keep on adding all of this fluff that we think is helping us know ourselves. But then the ultimate question, who am I, is not answered by any of this stuff, what we identify with externally. Because what we are, in essence, is pure energy. We are just the universe. Now it's a bit difficult if you go up to the visa control and they say, who are you? And you say, I'm the universe. Most probably they're not going to get you into that country. And most probably mental health will be called in to take care of it. So, you know, there are some things that say in some places, and when you're at visa control, you just say, yes, I'm Dr. Ananda, I'm Indian, here's my passport with the visa in it. You know, you keep to the bare necessities, the gross level necessities when you have to travel. Especially in a world where we keep on placing bigger and bigger boundaries between individuals. My father used to often say the first disease is duality. The moment you feel a sense of separatedness, that is where disease starts. That separatedness between the universe in which we live and ourselves, the separatedness between our mind and body, the separatedness between us and other people, well, that is where disease comes in, and we move into a state where we move away from our natural state of ease. Ease is our natural state. It is the state where we are healthy, and it is a state where wellness, wholesomeness, and oneness can manifest. Yet, every time we identify with something external, we are moving away from our steady state of ease. And the whole goal of yoga is to help us regain that steady state of ease, where we are at ease with ourselves, we are at peace with ourselves, we are in harmony with ourselves, and at that point, a beautiful feeling of wellness, wholesomeness, health starts to manifest. So health is not something we get by taking more drugs, health is not something we get by taking more vaccination, health is not something we get by taking more things from outside, but is actually an inner state, a state which is a dynamic state of balance. And that balance point lies within us, not outside. And so nobody else can be responsible for our health and our happiness. Yet you go around the world and you ask people, why are you unhappy or why are you unhealthy? And they'll always find a list of people to blame. It's always somebody else's fault that I am unhappy. It is always somebody else's fault that I am sad, I am angry. It's never my fault. We have grown up in a society where we constantly are looking for scapegoats outside, without realizing that the key of yoga, the key of finding that dynamic state of ease and wellness lies in taking responsibility for our own life. The moment we take responsibility for our own life into our hands, we are truly on the path to oneness, the path of ease, the path of health, and that is what spirituality is all about. Recently, a friend of mine who lives in Canada, she and I are writing a book together because she has gone through a huge journey with her cancer. She was diagnosed as having cancer, went through the treatment process, found that yoga actually helped her come through the process better, regain her health, and now has become someone who's advocating a program on rejuvenation through yoga for cancer survivors. So we are writing a book. Half the book is about her journey through cancer and beyond, and then half the book is about yoga and yoga therapy as a holistic approach to the whole person and not just a disease. And she and I were having a talk, and she said, you know, Dr. Ananda, recently I was asked, I was asked, is spirituality in the scope of practice of yoga therapy? And it was very interesting that actually people think that yoga therapy and yoga should be something different than spirituality. It was a bit weird for her. She was a bit thrown back because she and I, we have a lot of harmonious, similar thoughts, so we get along quite well. And it's quite funny that actually we don't realize that it is this amazing path where we start to understand our own self. The spirit meets the spirit. You meet yourself. And you meet your own essence, your essential nature. Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras tells us, we are caught up in the chitta vrittis, we are caught up in these whirlpools of the subconscious, unconscious mind that are pulling us, dragging us by our toenails down to the bottom of endless despair and suffering. Dukkha, it's called. That's what the chitta vrittis are doing. They're constantly pulling us down. And once they catch hold of you, it's tough to escape, okay? It's like you're in one of those whirlpools, and very difficult to get out of it once you're in it. So the best way to stop it is to be out of it, okay? If you stay out of it, you don't get caught in it. And that's the easiest solution is right at the tip. You say, stop, I'm not going any further. Because once you go further, your toenails are caught and that's the end of you. I'm not even saying you are caught, just your toenails. That's all your chitta vrittis need. They just need that toenail hold. Huh? It's a new wrestling hold, toenail hold. Sounds like a martial arts. One of those Chinese martial arts who catches hold of your toenail and you cannot move it. It sounds a bit like that. The chitta vrittis drag us away from who we are. And that is why he says, when those chitta vrittis can be stilled, which is actually what yoga is. Yoga, chitta vritti nirodha. It is that state where the chitta vrittis have been brought to a state of total cessation. They don't exist anymore. And at that point he says, you are established in your own essential nature. It is at that point we are established in our Swarupa Avasthanam. We are established in who we are. Till that point, we are constantly being pulled away into what we are not. What are those chitta vrittis? The first one is very simple, cognition. I cognize that all of you are here. I cognize we have a beautiful day, and I cognize there are some clouds that may rain on this day. I cognize there's a camera there. I cognize that this is of a certain color. I cognize there are this many people in this room. I cognize that I'm in the UK. I cognize I'm in Wales. I'm cognizing that I'm in the Yoga Sadhana Satsanga ashram. Oh, wow, great. But what's happening is getting involved with all of this. What has happened is I forgotten to look at who I am. What has happened is everything has been going out. Then comes misconception. We keep on seeing something and thinking it is something else. The classic example from Indian scriptures is you see a rope and think it is a snake. Now seeing a rope and thinking it's a snake is not too dangerous, okay? Gives you a bit of anxiety. But seeing a snake and thinking it to be a rope could be the end of you on this planet, right? Especially if it's of a poisonous type. I read a beautiful statement the other day. It said, ancient human beings had two things happening. One was, they could make two mistakes, okay? And we all make a lot of mistakes, but ancient human beings could make two mistakes. One was thinking that there was a tiger in the bush and there was no tiger, which led to anxiety. The second is thinking there's no tiger in the bush and there's a tiger, which led to your death. So it was just simple, two mistakes. One, thinking there is no tiger and there's a tiger, you get killed. Thinking there is a tiger but there's no tiger and you have anxiety. Now, one of them, that is thinking there's a tiger and there's no tiger, was found to be the better of the mistakes because it didn't kill you. Whereas the other one killed you. And so we actually got habituated to having anxiety as part of being us. And this is actually a very beautiful thought. I heard it the other day and I was like, this is beautiful. Because that is actually where we are stuck. We are stuck in that state which is viparyaya, where we are thinking that constantly there is a snake everywhere. We are thinking there is a saber-toothed tiger everywhere. Now in the good old days, as they would say, long, long ago, when you lived in a cave and I lived in a cave and we all lived in caves, no AC, no Wi-Fi, okay? That's the tough one. Huh? No Wi-Fi is the tough one. Huh? Someone recently told me, they said, too bad trees do not give off Wi-Fi. We will be planting them everywhere. Huh? Huh? They just give us oxygen, right? That doesn't matter. Huh? It's the Wi-Fi that matters to people. They're like, trees give you oxygen, so what? They don't give you Wi-Fi. So if just you could find a way that every tree you planted would give you Wi-Fi signals, people will be filling this planet with trees and we would be green very, very soon. We will not have to worry about this climate change that our political class loves to have, the viparyaya, the misconception that it doesn't exist. As far as they are concerned, it's a good opportunity for business. I was told by a green politician in Italy. We were talking about the climate change, and she said, you know what, for most of these people it's good business, because if the polar caps melt, they can get more oil from down under there. So they're actually looking at it as a business opportunity rather than as a horrendous development to the negative side of humanity. Well, that's another perspective we cannot think about. Viparya is about constantly having these negativities. So once upon a time when we lived in a cave without Wi-Fi, in the morning you got up on a morning like this and you came out of your cave, you could see a saber-toothed tiger. Now if you saw that saber-toothed tiger and it saw you, there are two things you can do. One is you can run away and escape from it, climb a tree and hope it doesn't climb trees. It's not that mutant that can climb trees. You have to watch out for that. Otherwise, again. Or the second option is you could decide you were going to fight it, and if you were prepared and strong enough mentally, physically, emotionally to fight it, and you had developed your tools with which you could fight it, you are going to fight it, kill it, and then you survive. So one option was to run away, get away from that threat, and come back to normal, because most probably you're not going to see a saber-toothed tiger every day, okay? It was a once in a month occurrence, so the rest of the month you had a chance to come back to normal and recuperate and rest and relax, and things were back to normal until you saw the next saber-toothed tiger. And the second one was you fought it, you won in the battle, that's great, now you had meat for the whole month and you didn't have to worry about going out hunting, and you had got rid of one of the predators. Most probably you had 2 months holiday before the next threat comes. Okay? Third option, it ate you. Now if it ate you, there's no stress because you're not there anymore. So you have stress as long as you are there. The moment you are not there, there's no stress. In fact, I often remind people, the people who have died have no stress. It's the people who are left behind who have the stress. Dealing with the physical, mental, and often financial issues. That other person who's died actually has no stress. They are out of it actually. And that is why we practice the Shavasana, to know what it feels like when we die. It's a simulation of the death experience, what it feels like not to have the stresses of the world on our shoulders every moment. That's what we are doing. So coming back, we had this option to either fight or flee, and of course there was this third one which comes in psychology, which is freeze. And freeze is fine as long as you're a small animal. You're a small animal and a python is going to devour you. Now at that point, that animal, if it cannot escape and cannot fight, thank you. If it cannot escape and it cannot fight, what it does is it goes into the freeze mode and it just freezes. Now this freeze is actually very protective, because as that small animal is getting eaten full by that python, it actually doesn't feel pain because it's in that freeze response. So it was actually trying to protect that small animal, that even when you die, you are not dying in pain. You don't know you're getting eaten. It's an amazing psychological survival mode that got switched on. That's fine when it's a small animal, a small rabbit. It's fine when it's a small mouse, but it's not fine when it is us and we are in the middle of the highway. You are in the middle of the highway and you freeze in front of a truck. That's not a good idea, okay? So something that was useful when we were a small animal is no longer useful when we have become a human being. And I often remind people of an amazing story. It is a story I learnt of when I was in New Zealand, and New Zealand is in my bad books because they defeated India yesterday in cricket. So, that's the worst thing that can happen to an Indian, is lose in the semi-finals of the cricket World Cup. It's like seriously devastated beyond recognition, and it was. I thought we were in for a real massacre, and then we sort of saved a bit of grace by not losing too badly, but still in India, our cricketers better not come back to the country for the next year. Because you know what will happen to them. They are not going to be treated kindly for the next year, because it's a matter of national pride. When we win, it's us, and when we lose, it's them. You know the usual word? And whenever the success is here, and then it's really, okay, find the guy to pinpoint it and find the person who has to be the scapegoat for the thing. Well, I was in New Zealand some years ago and I went to a beautiful museum they have of New Zealand life. And there's this huge bird, it's as big as a cow. And this, it looks a bit like an emu, an ostrich, that type of bird. Couldn't fly but ran very fast. Now this bushy bird had one predator and one time. And that predator was a huge eagle. So whenever that eagle was in the sky and this bird, it was called a moa, M-O-A, moa. When this moa would sense that it is under threat from this eagle, the predator, it had one beautiful way of surviving. You know what it used to do? It would just stand still. The moment it stood still, it looked like a bush. And so the eagle would keep flying and it would be saved. So the wonderful survival mechanism that moa had developed over time, survival of fittest, Darwin, was to just stand still and act like a bush. You know, like sometimes kids do it, they close their eyes and think you don't exist. I'm going to make you disappear. Cute when it's a kid, not when it's adults in relationships and adults at work. I will just close my eyes and the problem disappears. How I wish that could happen. How I wish if we could just close our eyes and the problems would disappear. That would be a perfect world for me, okay? But the problem is, if you want to solve the problems, you have to keep your eyes open and you have to relate with others and you have to do something about it. So this moa used to just find this beautiful survival mechanism, worked for thousands of years. It was going extremely well. It had found the way to survive. When there is a predator, when there is a stress, stand still and do nothing. Now bad news for the moa. Polynesians came in canoes to New Zealand. So the human beings, when they came to New Zealand, these guys had spears with them. And so these guys started chasing the moa to get meat. And guess what the moa did? It said, what is the way to survive when under threat? Stand still. And so it used to just stand still thinking that it would escape. Now a standing still target, you can imagine how easy it was to hit. And within a very, very short time, the moa went extinct because it couldn't change its way of adapting to stress. I often think of human beings. Today we are in a very, very bad situation as a human being because we are relying upon old mechanisms to tackle new problems. We think something we learned as a kid is going to help us now in a new issue. It's very difficult. You know, as a kid, I don't know how many of us in this room, me included, had a mobile as a kid. None, right? Okay. Did any of us have an iPad as a kid? Did we have a computer as a kid? Did we have the internet as a kid? Okay. Now our kids have it all. Okay. How do you deal with them when you never learned? You were never faced with that problem. So you never saw your parents or any adults deal with a kid. So you never learned how to deal with it. And yet you now are faced with an issue, but you don't have any model to follow. Can you sort of relate to what I'm saying now? And it's one of the major issues. One of the good things of me traveling is my mobile phone is with me, and so my son cannot use it. And he has a mobile phone which is one of the handouts for me, but it is not as exciting because it's not high speed, it doesn't have the games he wants, okay? So he'll use it for 1 hour and he gets bored with it. Whereas with mine, he could be on it for 24 hours and not get bored. Okay, so when I have my phone and I'm traveling, it's actually good because he is limited to his 1 hour of the mobile phone a day. Okay, so how do you deal with it? Father keeps traveling. Huh? Seems a bit like shutting your eyes, okay, to a problem. Huh? And I was just talking to my mother, and it's been a big, giant leap to get her to use a mobile phone. She refuses to look at a computer screen. And mobile was like a big jump for her, but it's good. Now she uses it to talk to all of us at home. Where are you? Get here. Okay, instead of shouting across the hall, it's the mobile. So. I asked her, she said, well, he's only using it less than an hour because, he cannot do more than that. So I said, okay, fine, that's good. So you find one way to do with it. Each person has to find their own way. You have to find your own way. Because when I'm at home, I cannot find my mobile. And most probably he has it and you never know where he is with it because he doesn't want you to find him with it. So, again, it's one of those issues. How do we deal with these new threats that are there to our sanity? How do we deal with the new challenges that are coming up for which we were not trained? We didn't see people. We saw how our parents responded to, us plucking a flower off somebody's garden. We saw what they did when, we ran down the road without listening to them. We saw a bit, but even that has changed because you cannot use those methods today, you would be reported. So, it's again, things have changed a lot. So, again, we have had to adapt. Now, the more we can adapt, so that is why when Darwin said survival of the fittest, it should have been the survival of the ones that can adapt the best. It's about adaptability. That is what actually fitness means. Can you adapt to change? Can you recognize change? So if you want to adapt, you have to first recognize it. You have to recognize the change. You have to recognize the need for you to adapt. And then you have to put it into action and adapt to that change. Well, that requires a lot of prefrontal cortex activity. This part of our brain is the brain that does that. And there are 3 parts of our brain. And I'll just draw a small schematic of it this morning. Yeah, I think now the challenge is finding a place where you can all see it. Okay, what I did last time was I did it spin it away. Spun it around, rather. That English. This is a very useful concept to keep in mind when we want to live a life of yoga. And again, I must remind you, yoga is something you live, it is not really something you do. And yoga implies a state of being, which is what we are supposed to do as a human being. We are supposed to be human beings. But we have totally become human doings to such an extent. The first thing, what do you do when you meet somebody? You say, how do you do? Next question, what do you do? Next question, why do you do? When do you do? It's all about this do. And I'm just thinking about that. It's part of our mal-identification syndrome. This mal-identification where we identify with everything that we are not. So we start to identify with something we do rather than what we are. So a human being is to be human, not do human. Yoga is like that. Yoga is all about being a noble human being. And person doesn't have to sit on the rear end or stand on their head to be a yogi. If they are a noble human being, they are already a yogi. That is my definition of a yogi, a noble human being. My father would say, Homo erectus became Homo sapiens, became Homo sapiens sapien. He said the next one is Homo nobilis, the noble human being. That's what it's all about. But just to give you an idea about this, we have something called our spinal cord. And this spinal cord is found in us and is found in Virtually all the creatures, basically all the vertebrates, they have it. Can you see from there, or is it a bit? Yeah, this is better. Okay, fine. So this spinal cord, what happens is that on top of it, it has a small outcropping. This outcropping that is there on top of it, can you see that like a bulb on top of that spinal cord? That is your brain stem. And the brain stem is the part that keeps you alive. So whenever we say somebody's brain dead, what we mean is this brain stem has gone out. If that brain stem goes out, basically you can only survive with outside support, mechanical ventilation and external support. You are not supported by your own system. Because the brain stem does three things that are essential for our survival. One, it keeps us breathing. Two, it keeps the blood circulating throughout our body. And three, it helps our food to be digested. Respiration, circulation, digestion are basically the three things you need to survive. It's quite pathetic that that's what survival means, okay? And that survival drive is based on just three things: respiration, circulation, digestion. And all those three are governed by the brainstem. That's how important it is. And so it is very well protected under here. You have this thickest part of the skull. If you put your hand to the back of your head, you will feel this occiput. And this occipital area, which is the thickest part of your skull, it's right under there is where your brainstem is. It's very well protected because it is very vital for your survival. And so the occiput is amongst the thickest part of your skull, so that you are well protected. And you know what, when you're lying down in Shavasana, isn't this part of the area that is touching the ground? You are becoming aware of the deep survival instinct even when you're lying down in Shavasana. A lot of things happen in Shavasana. It's not just lying down and feeling good, okay? Many multi-dimensional, multi-layer things are happening in Shavasana that often people don't understand. Now, we have the spinal cord. What does the spinal cord do? It's basically keeping us reactive. So, if somebody bites me, I react to them. If somebody touches me, I react to them. If somebody hugs me, I react to them. All the reactivity that is there is based on your spinal cord. So, your spinal cord is the reactive part of you. The brainstem is the part which is the survival part of you. But then comes the new brain, which is this part. You then have the animal part of you. So you have the middle part of the brain here, the next part. And if you look at it, you can see how it started with the spinal cord, added the brainstem to it, and now added the middle part of the brain, the old brain. This part is the part that is the animal part, the mammalian part. This is where we have all our emotional reactions. Love, hate, jealousy, all of that is here. And this is where you have a part which is the limbic system. And this limbic system, which is like this, it is basically a circular structure. The limbus, basically, a limbus is a circular structure. So this limbic system is what your emotions are all about. And we all know how emotions work. They start off with a small pebble thrown into the water. And then what happens? The ripple effect starts. He said that, or she said that. How dare he say it? They always say that. This keeps on happening too much. I have to do something about it. Oh, poor me. I keep on getting told off. Oh, how this happens all the time. Now I remember my mother used to do it. Now I remember my father used to do it. Now my friends do it. How bad my life is. God doesn't like me. The whole society doesn't like me. I have to do something about it, and I have to do something, and if I don't do it now, I'm going to be dead. And so what do? I make a big ah! Wow. I had a universal echo to that. I never knew you can activate them by a screech. Now I know. And that is the Karana Sharira, that is the causal layer of existence. When we do something in the gross level, it affects the Karana, it's the subtlest of the ripples. So be careful what you do, because it's going to always be happening. Thank you for that lesson. I got a new lesson today. Where did that screech start? He said that or she said that. Just a small thing. And actually that's why in yoga you are trying to become conscious when these things are at the smallest level, because it's much easier to deal with it when it is just a small piece of snow than when it becomes that avalanche. Once it's an avalanche, it's very, very difficult. The only goal you have often is to run away. And how far can you run when it's your own avalanche, created by you? That is what that is all about, the emotional part. And then comes the newest kid on the block, and that is the outermost layer. And you see now this outermost layer that I've drawn there, that area is the human cortex. That is the prefrontal cortex. That is the part, basically where our forehead is. So when you place your hand here, this is what you feel. This is the prefrontal cortex. This is the area that actually enables us to be truly human. The spinal cord doesn't enable us to be human. It just helps us be reactive, reactionary. What does the brainstem do? It doesn't help us be human. It just helps us to survive by keeping respiration, circulation, digestion going. What does the next part do? It just gives us all the emotional high and low, but it actually still is not bringing in much of conscious thinking or even logic or rationality or anything into it. It is only the human brain when that it is one of the newer developments in the human being. If you look at the old Neanderthal humans, you'll see that skull didn't have much of a forebrain. It had more, the brain was there but not the forebrain. It is only later on as human beings develop that this part developed the most. And this is the part where the conscious choice can be made, the power of choice. And that power of choice is what makes us human. We can choose what attitude we take towards anything that happens to us. Not just anything, everything that happens to us. And by choosing the attitude, we can modulate our stress response. So instead of becoming the victim of stress, you start to actually become the master of stress by saying, I am not going to let this stress me. We actually have a choice there. People forget that we have a choice. When someone says something to us, we have a choice to either get stressed by it or not get stressed by it. We get stressed by it because it's a threat to our ideas, it's a threat to our existence. Is threat. What is threat? A sense of duality. And when you say that, well, other people are entitled to their opinions, and maybe their opinions also have some validity, you are not stressed about the opinion anymore. This is why on Facebook I have a couple of dozen people whose opinions are so divergent to me that I should defriend them, unfriend them right away. And yet I won't do it. Consciously I made a choice not to do it just so that I know that such opinions exist on this planet. And these include opinions that Donald Trump is the best thing to have ever happened to humankind. Okay? So I have some of my uncles in the USA who have that opinion. And I just love what they post on Facebook. Because it's so divergent from my thought process, but it is good to see there's another perspective that is so diametrically opposite, and then you say, okay, fine, what's in that, what's in my perspective, and you start to find something. I have the most amazing perspectives from people on everything you can think under the sun. And it's beautiful. And the thing is, it would be easier for us to say, okay, I'm only going to have people in my life who have my perspective. You think it's easier, but then you'll find that even in that, there are many shades of green. As I was telling Deepika yesterday, just looking out here, I'm like, oh my God, I should write a book, 20 Shades of Green. It's just amazing out there, right? Let's call it 20,000 Shades of Green to just have to take it out of that context. Amazing variety. So, you think, okay, fine, it will be fine if it's all green, and then in green you find there are so many shades, you're like, oh my God, I don't like that shade. It's too dark, it's too light. Huh? it's too pungent, it's too offensive, it's too, mellow, and so even in that, so you say, I don't like the blue and I don't like the pink, and okay, fine, good. So you are with all the greens, and then in the green you find all that. And then what are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, fine, I'll only be with the dark greens. And then in the dark green you find that there are infinite possibilities. So it's not about, isolating ourselves. The more we isolate ourselves, the more lonely we feel. It's like what we do. We go and shut ourselves in the room and then we say, nobody comes to meet me. Come on, if you want people to meet you, go out and meet people. My father used to tell me, because I remember as a kid, people always say, Ananda, the father must have taught you such secret techniques. Like he taught me no secret technique. But he taught me a lot about life. And I think that's the big secret. The big secret is to know that in life there are many, many, many things. And when you start to understand life, you tap into what you need to tap into. You don't need secret techniques of where to hit on the head to have samadhi right away. Which is what people think it's all about. It's not about that at all. It's about you knowing what life is. My father used to often tell me, he said, Ananda, the more you give, the more comes back. As a kid, it's a bit difficult because you don't really see it happening. And we as an adult are often limited like a kid in our perspective. And so we say, I gave that person so much love and I got nothing back. Yeah, not from that person, but from many other people you have got, and you have been blind to what's coming back from other people because you are only focused on one person. And the problem is we always think in one direction, in one dimension. We don't realize what we give comes back to us in multiple dimensions, multiple directions, if we are open to it. And an example used to be, my father used to get hundreds of letters. Those were the days before email, okay? If it were today, he would be getting hundreds of emails, okay? The equivalent would be that, like what I deal with. One reason I carry my mobile around with me is the hundreds of emails I deal with every day. Because people don't realize you're traveling, and even if you're traveling, they want a response as usual, which is within 24 hours, which is my deadline. If I say you don't get a response from me in 24 hours, it means that most probably I didn't get your email. That's what it is. Or it didn't relate to me. That's another one. So my father would get these hundreds of letters every day, and the postman would bring this big bag and dump it on his table. And I remember looking at that, and he would then immediately sit and he would dictate, and my mother would type out replies to people, and they would be going out. So hundreds of letters would be going out every day. And so I remember going up to him one day and saying, Swamiji, you are getting hundreds of letters per day and I'm not getting any. Is this fair? And as a kid, you had these doubts, right? And he said, yes, Ananda. He said, how many letters have you been writing? I said, none. He said, if you are writing no letters, why do you think you should be getting any letter from anyone? And I still remember this day that message. We want love, we want gratitude, we want respect, we want success, we want support. But then the question is, how much of it are we giving out? That is what matters. Because when we start to give it out, we are setting into motion the wheels of the universe that make sure that we get it back in abundance. Now, if you send out nothing, what do you think comes back? Any guess? Nothing. You send out nothing, nothing comes back. You send out no one, no one comes back. You send out no love, no love comes back. You send out a little bit, the universe usually responds much more. I have seen where $30 becomes $3,000 within 10 minutes. I have seen that type of thing happen. I'm not into gambling. That's not gambling, and that's not in the casino. Okay, I see it happen in life, where I spend $30 for something, and I turn around and somebody has a check with $3,000 for me for something else. Not a gift, but it was. You'll say, oh, you're going to get it anytime. But it was very interesting. Always in my life, I find whenever I'm sharing, I find that life shares back, and usually it's multiples of what you have put out. Give love, it comes back amazingly. That's what yoga is about. So when we start to realize that, we start to grow in our humanness, we start to manifest our humanity, we start to actually become that human being that we are to be. So today I'm not going to start with any of the traditional practices, I'm going to go straight into a practice that deals with this. So can I have you all stand up? And just start to move your legs